Hello my friends, happy Tuesday. You just survived Monday, so congratulations. I also survived Monday, but you know what didn't survive Monday? My hairline. Yes, I have a new haircut and I know about the comments, and to take that weapon away from you, I'm gonna go to the comment section and put in hairline. Let's see what you guys write. Love you, but Ukrainian territory is looking like your hairline. Sad Estonian noises. Ain't no way you edited your hairline to be even worse. Skulls. Your hairline has a better chance of coming back than the plane being shot down. Tears all over me. I can't. But I must be strong. I must read these comments. His hairline, much like Ukraine, is in full retreat. Ouch. Alright, my friend, I can't take anymore, otherwise I'll lose my positive attitude. But keep the comments coming. I'm going to Ukraine tomorrow, so I'll need some of this humor on the way. It's gonna be a 35-hour trip with a car, so I'll be reading them while my co-driver is driving. I'll be reading all of these comments to him. Now, my friends, I'll bring you a video translated by Dimitri from Twitter. This is a Chechen Akhmat Vostok battalion commander, Chechen battalion commander, who was stopped in Russian-occupied Melitopol, which is one of the main Russian military hubs in southern occupied Ukraine, one of the main checkpoints. Now, Russian soldiers stopped him because you're supposed to stop everybody, ask for the papers. Let's see how the Chechen Vostok Akhmat battalion commander reacted. And I'll tell you this, his papers were out of date. So this is the soldier approaching an incoming car. Let's see which kind of car the Akhmat Vostok battalion commander drives in. It's a Mercedes. Woo! And it looks like an S-Class. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This is a new S or E-Class, one of those two. Good day. Are you military? Yes. Do you have a combat order? Show your combat order. Shows the paper. Yeah, gives the paper. Yeah, all is good. First of all, so Russian-occupied Melitopol, right? Akhmat Vostok, so the TikTok military battalion commander drives around in an S-Class in southern occupied Ukraine, while others are dying in trenches. I don't find this right. So the Russian soldier is performing his duties correctly, looking at the papers. All seems to be... Let's cut this, it's too long. Let's cut to the action. Unit, which date is it? What? It's unlimited. Unlimited combat order is considered invalid. So these Vostok battalion commander probably printed out his own order with unlimited date range, which you cannot do, and the soldier is addressing that. I don't give a F about considerations. I'm a battalion commander. Regiment commander gave it to me. Move your car right. So the soldier now gives an order. Okay, let's deal with this. Move your car right and possibly get out of the vehicle. Let's talk about it. And let's see what happens, how the battalion commander reacts. He comes out of the car. Other dudes come out of the car. The soldier cocks his rifle. I don't know how you call it. Like, gets his rifle ready to shoot, and boom, shoot. The Chechens are provoking the guy to shoot. It's a mandavoshka, blad, which, if I'm translating this Russian word correctly to you, Chechen accent mandavoshka means lice in your private parts. They are calling the soldier lice in your private parts. And they hit him. They just hit him right now. I'll shoot him, you out of your mind. So the soldier was knocked down for doing his duty by the Chechens. I gotta remind you, this is a good way to talk about it. It illustrates it perfectly. The Chechens have fought against the Russians for a long time. This is not going back to the 90s and the Chechen War. This goes back centuries. The Russian Empire fought the Chechens, and Chechens fought the Russian Empire. Russia has occupied Chechnya for centuries. And before Russia, it was Turkey, if I'm not mistaken. Also, the First and the Second Chechen War, they were official sworn enemies of each other, and Kadyrov is actually a blood relative of the last leader of Chechnya, and it's turned sides, so he's basically a traitor to his own people. Now, Chechens and Russians now don't get along at all, because Chechens are like this military police. They're the ones who are supposed to punish you if you don't do your duty correctly on the front line. They're never on the front. They make these TikTok videos where they're 10 kilometers behind the front, shooting up in the air and putting that on TikTok. And Russian soldiers are actively dying on the front. So there's this discord. They don't like each other. And this shows immediately here. Also, Chechens are known to, I don't know which word can I use here, but this is official knowledge. Their videos also, they're known to sexually abuse Russian soldiers on the front who are not performing their duties. They throw them in the holes or in the cellars, and then the act goes on. So that's pretty much the relationship in the Russian army, Chechens versus the Russians. So it's not one unified army. There are, and then we're not even talking about the fighters from the Donetsk and Luhansk People's Republics. They are not considered even human by both the Russians or the Chechens. My friends, a little bit of a surprise for you. Let's go. In this video, I showed you ground news. My friends, today I want to talk about Ukrainian mobilization, and yes, I've said it before, it is very unpopular. Now, the more important thing here is how the media decides to title this news, and this is why I do it through ground news, because they show me the comparison. Ground news brings you data that the media is usually trying to hide. Ground news shows you all sides of the story. For example, I go and search Ukraine, and there's a topic called Ukraine War, and if I go here, I see the news immediately. Ukraine criticized draft bill on mobilization withdrawn from 4 amendments. Now this is true. Zelensky sent the bill back because it needs some changes before it can be approved. Now total news sources covering this story is 25, leaning left is 2, leaning right is 8. So we can see this news is dominated by right-leaning news sites. You can also see the bias distribution on the right here. It's mostly 57% right-leaning, only 14% left-leaning. Data like this is extremely important to know what might be the hidden agenda behind the wording in the title, because the wording means so much. Let's look at some wording examples for this very specific news. Ukraine situation report, Kiev's mobilization plan stalled by parliament. See, it says center and it's high factuality, and if I read this, I do feel like it only gives me information. It doesn't try to affect my thought. Russian-affiliated TASS, which is lean right and mixed factuality and government-owned, says this: controversial mobilization bill withdrawn from Ukrainian parliament. This controversial here already means something, to affect, to give a judgment to the news. On the ownership tab, we can see that 0% of the sources are independent news. And let's look at the percentages actually. 27% covering this news is owned by governments, 27% by individuals, 20% by media conglomerates, and private equity is 13%. See, who owns the media conglomerates or corporations? They own the bias behind it. They choose what sort of titling people read. Titles, the wording in them already change people's minds. So this is why this is very important. And of course, there's a graph where you can see which countries from the news is published most in the past 24 hours. And surprisingly, this news mostly comes out of Malaysia, because there's 2 publishers there about this Ukrainian mobilization draft being pushed back from the parliament. Being on the informational warfare myself, I do have to say that Russians are extremely good at psychological operations and info ops, especially affecting people's minds with the news. This is why I use ground news as a shield against that. Click the link in the description below to get 30% off unlimited access, or subscribe for as little as $1 per month. Thank you, ground news. We all talk about the necessity of the FPV drone, but we never talk about the close combat effectiveness of it. Here you can see a Ukrainian FPV drone carrying a katana. I mean, send this bad boy to a Russian trench and slash, bam! Ukraine liberated. This is for close combat operations, and it's an unmanned katana. It is extremely deadly. If I would be a Russian tank driver, I'd be afraid of this more than an FPV drone with a bomb. I'm sure the operator of this flying katana is a master of Bushido. Now, my friends, I want to show you a video. Look what's inside. This plastic-looking stuff or Play-Doh-looking stuff here is actually explosives, and this is the ignition of the explosives with a battery. And this is a Kalashnikov magazine. A very, very common, one of the most common items to find anywhere on the front lines in Ukraine. Both sides use Kalashnikovs, both sides share the caliber, and these magazines are used by both sides and usually picked up by both sides. The weapons are also usually picked up from the enemy also, because you can use them. So the Russians use this tactic here, where this is converted into a bomb, explosive trap, a booby trap. Now, this explosive right here is not enough to kill a person instantly, but it is enough to blow off the arm up to an elbow, basically, which is, if you don't get medical attention, you will bleed out. If you do, you will not have an arm later. So in any way, it's bad, and 3-4 soldiers have to take care of you. So extremely deadly. And if Ukrainians liberate any territory, they cannot pick up the magazines or the weapons. They might be wired. Please, you know more about the Geneva Convention and the laws about booby traps in war, wire traps like that. What do they say? Is this legal or illegal? Not that it matters, because Russia doesn't care about it, but just I want to know what the law says. Look, my friends, this area northeast from Kazakhstan is about 3,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Why is it important? Well, because Russian Volunteer Corps, yes, the Ukrainian unit consisting only of Russian citizens fighting against the tyranny of Putin, they managed to derail a train 3,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. And they made a video about it. Now, this is one of the far-reaching and most effective partisan work or work behind enemy lines that I've seen. Look at this. These trains are vitally important because they transport oil and ammunition and everything needed that is needed from the Far East to the Ukrainian. Russia is mostly connected by train, rail, and a lot of supplies, a lot of infantry fighter vehicles and oil and everything needed for the military machine to work is in the Far East. And they travel to the Russian-occupied Ukraine by train. So derailing these trains is very, very directly connected to Russian attrition on the front lines, the cutting off the logistics. Look, this is a derailer. Not that I know anything about it, but I know one when I see one. Very easy thing to make, very easy thing to install, and a very cheap and cost-effective way to cut some countries' logistics, because you derail a train which needs a lot of money, time and effort to actually be cleaned up. By such a small device you can do this. And boom, there she goes. Ukraine has showed us that they can send drones 1,000 kilometers deep into Russian territory and they will not be shot down, because Russia has concentrated their anti-air defense capabilities into areas near Ukraine, not deep inside Russia. That means if Ukrainians are able to send their drones through these air defense saturated areas, if the drones survive that flight, then they can fly freely in Russia. Now they demonstrate to us that SBU and the Russian Volunteer Corps have connections and have a circle in Russia of people who are actively derailing trains, perhaps in the future blowing up bridges, perhaps setting fires to some buildings, because there's fires everywhere. And we don't even have to talk about the water pipes bursting, because you don't need Ukrainian partisans to do that. The weather is doing that for Ukraine. My friends, here is a photo given to us by Brady Afric, a very good Twitter account. Now, this is Sevastopol entrance to the Sevastopol Bay. And after the last year's very effective Ukrainian Sea Baby or marine drone attacks, they call them Sea Baby, best name for a marine drone. Russians installed this 4-5 layered defense system. There are this first line, second line, third line, fourth line, fifth line, and then dolphin pens. Yes, because in Sevastopol, in the Soviet Union, that was the only official dolphin military training facility. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, after 15 or 20 years, Putin re-announced the training program. It continues training dolphins to protect the Sevastopol Bay. Now they actually have this dolphin pen right here. I don't know of how effective it will be. I don't really believe in it. But what I do believe in, or have to believe in, is these boom defenses. Yes, they are quite enough to stop the marine drones. Unfortunately, they're cheap, they're easy to install, and they do the job. So I don't think any marine drone will get into the Sevastopol Bay anytime soon. But there's no necessity for it, because as soon as Russia leaves into the open Black Sea with any of their Black Sea fleet ships, they will be attacked by marine drones. This is why Russian ships are cowering in the ports, defended by these lines. They cannot move. Same goes mostly about Russian Baltic fleet. Both of their fleets, Black Sea and Baltic fleets, are cowering in the ports because it's very dangerous for them to leave to the open water. This doesn't go to the Russian submarines because they have a submarine base in Murmansk, far north under the ice sheet, and their submarines are very deadly and very quiet and they can be anywhere. So that's the only Russian marine. The submarine fleet is the only part of Russian Navy that is actually effective and deadly. My friends, the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, not Donald Trump, but Donald Tusk, arrived in Kiev. I'm very glad to hear this because Poland has been, and it seems to me that will be, the main supporter of Ukraine, and they will be the main military powerhouse of Europe for the next 20 years in Eastern Europe and area. They will be the main defender against Russia, seeing what they order for the military: 1,000 Western main battle tanks, 500 HIMARS systems. I put my trust in Poland. And that's not all. The United Kingdom already signed bilateral security guarantees for Ukraine in the future, meaning Ukraine might not be in the EU or might not be in the NATO, but UK as a Western country has signed security treaty. They are pledging their help or aggressive behavior against Ukraine for the long term. This is what Putin fears the most. Now, French president declared the same, that they will do the same. So UK and France, very powerful militaries in Europe, are going to help Ukraine in the long term. And now Poland joins this. Donald Tusk announced that they will sign a bilateral security treaty with Ukraine, which means 3 very powerful militaries in European continent have long-term support plans for Ukraine. That is very good news, and very bad news for Putin, of course. My friends, now we'll go to Russian-occupied Crimea, to Sevastopol. I'll read you a report. You're gonna enjoy this next part. For some reason still unknown, the water supply in the city of Sevastopol in occupied Crimea was shut down, and the next 2 days were officially declared as holidays in the city. Holidays in Russian language is called priaznik. Wherever it's holidays, and there's many in Russian official system because they want to drink and they can only drink when it's holidays. Their priaznik, or holidays, means 12 hours of drinking, like pure vodka. So it's priaznik. I know what the Russians gonna be doing in the next 2 days. Local authorities stated that this decision was caused by melting snow water infiltrating the water supply systems. This event has the potential to become a complicating factor for the Russian military operations. Yes, it does. Sevastopol is the main base of the Russian Black Sea Fleet, which is already emptied of the Russian Black Sea Fleet because they're afraid of getting hit. They sent it to the more safer parts of the Black Sea, but Sevastopol still remains a very active and important Russian military base. If the Sevastopol city doesn't have water, which is itself very bad because it's a big city with a lot of people, then also the military base doesn't have water in the area, which complicates almost everything for the Russian military. They have to help out the civilians and the military in Sevastopol. And this is not done by Ukraine. This is just Russians not taking care of their infrastructure for the last 50 years, 60 years. Soviet occupied Crimea. I mean, they have the Soviet plumbing system there, Soviet water system, water infrastructure. It's all in decay. Talking about Russian infrastructure that is in decay, because most of the Russian sewage system and water heating pipe system is made in the 70s, 80s, some in the 60s. And Putin has given a lot of money to replace these sewage systems. We cannot say that he hasn't allocated money towards it. But the money is always stolen because Russia has huge corruption problems. So if you're an owner of an infrastructure company that is supposed to change the water piping system in, let's say, Russian city of Kazan, nobody will do anything to you if you steal all the money, replace 1 or 2 pipes, and then take 3 million, 4 million, 10 million into your pocket. That has been going on all the time because Putin advocates this corruption. He's fine with it. Now, the outcome of this, of 5 decades of stealing this money, is right here in front of your eyes. I'll show it to you. This is the Russian city of Kazan, which I was just talking about, and this is a river. It's not supposed to be here. It's supposed to be a street where cars are driving. but a huge sewage pipe, which is like 50, 60 years old and never been replaced, burst because of it's old. And this is sewage water, or let's say it beautifully, it's poop water. Now, a new river, a new beautiful smelling river of poop water is going on right on the Kazan main highway. One of the cars is floating in the poop water. I mean, imagine how expensive it would be to make a new beautiful river in the middle of the city. Now you don't have to do it. The water pipe did it for you. Congratulations, authorities of Kazan. Here we can see another look on the poop water. Of course, it is steaming because, as all of you know, poop is warm. So this is all steaming in Kazan. I'm guessing it smells wonderfully like the Russian world does. Smells like stealing money and corruption. And of course, the public transport does not stop for some poop water river. What? This is Russia. We don't stop public transport for poop water river. We drive through it. So people in the bus have to get some poop water. Everybody gets some poop water. It's free because it's Russia. Look at this. Ruski Mir, my friends. Welcome to Ruski Mir in its all might. So a new week has been going on for 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, today. And I'll read you a summary of what's going on in Russia. It's very quick, 30 seconds, but you will get an idea of how bad the situation is. In 2 days, fires, utility breakdowns and bad weather conditions continue to storm Russian cities. In Samara, a market is on fire. The area of fire already reached 1,000 square meters. In Kazan, a new river formed right in the city. Underground communications burst there. Several streets were blocked because of the utility accident. One car turned into a ship. When we talk about Russian Black Sea Fleet head vessel, the Moskva, it was turned into a submarine. Well, in this case, we're talking about the opposite, a car turning into a ship. In Russia, everything is possible. In Vladivostok, a hurricane is raging. Powerful wind up to 30 meters per second demolishes everything on its way, roofs, poles, and even people. Regional flights have been cancelled because of the weather. The Ruski bridge was closed for buses and trucks. Yes, my friends, things are bad, and I'm not saying this doesn't happen to any country. Every country in the world has some kind of issues with weather or storms or earthquakes, wherever you are geographically. The solution here is these countries who have these storms and weathers, they're used to it, so they have infrastructure and manpower ready to clear the issues. Russia, on the other hand, they know, they get this almost every year. But they also steal the money every year that is allocated to fight against these storms and to change the piping and not to form a poop river in the city. All of the money is stolen. And then all of the men are sent to the front who are supposed to eliminate the outcomes of these natural disasters. And then that's the outcome. Poop water. Or in the example of St. Petersburg, what can you find from an old Russian sewage pipe? Well, let's see. This is about 50, 60-year-old Russian sewage pipe. And they're trying to open it up to see what's inside. Why is it clogged? Water doesn't go through. People are complaining. Some houses doesn't have water anymore. So they gotta open it up, Let's fix it. It's a good way of thinking. Russians try to fix things. And what's inside? It's Dmitry. Hey, look, it's Dima. Dima is inside. Dima had a little bit of a party. Hello, Dima. Dima is alive and well, don't worry, my friends. YouTube overlords, Dima is good, alive. You just wanted to go visit the sewage pipe. Dima is rescued from the sewage pipe and is alive and well. Hello, Dima. And now, my friends, I want to have a history lesson. Not to teach you. No, I'm not a historian. I want to learn history myself. And I've learned this in Estonian schools because we are taught the right history, not the wrong history. Let's take the subject of Russian or Soviet World War II. Because in the West also, this history is taught in the wrong way. We know because we're from Estonia. We got the German occupation. Then we got the Soviet occupation, then the German occupation, and then the Soviet occupation again. I mean, we've seen all the sides. So I'll give you my Estonian view here. Let's break down the Russians' role in the World War II. Number one, they started it. Yes, that is correct. The Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact split Poland in two between the Nazis and Russians. This agreement also included wide-ranging trade and military training deals. Yes, Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was not only about geography, it was also about sharing ammunition, transporting a lot of iron to the Germans, for example. The Soviets transported hundreds of thousands, if not millions of tons of iron, raw iron, with trains to the Germans. And the Germans built tanks with it, thousands of tanks that they used to invade the Soviet Union. Number 2, Soviets committed war crimes. At Katyn forest, the Russians executed 22,000 Polish military officers and intelligentsia, POWs. Yes, it is very well known in the Katyn forest. How they did it is they just shot them to the head. Everybody. They shot them to the head. There's a whole movie about it. 22,000, it was like line work. They were brought in one by one and bam, bam, bam. Clean the blood with a bucket, another one comes in. It was one shooting in 10 seconds. That's how it worked. That was the statistics. They attacked other nations to achieve territorial expansion. In winter of 1939, the Russians attacked Finland, suffering huge casualties in the process of minimal territorial gain. Yes, the Finnish, you can never say the Finnish won the Winter War, because they didn't. They actually lost both the Winter War and the continuation war, but they stayed independent by giving away 11% of the territory and eliminating 250,000 Russians in the process. Stalin really got a right hook by the Finnish. Number 4, Lend-Lease was crucial to the survival. Although Russian industry recovered late in the war, during the crucial period of 1941 to 42, Lend-Lease supplies sent by UK and the US were critical to their survival. And if you think, oh, the Soviets lost the most and they actually won World War II, no. Soviets got their arses kicked. United States and UK sent millions of tons of humanitarian and military aid. They sent thousands of planes. Let me say this again, thousands of planes. They sent tanks and infantry fighting vehicles. They sent weapons, and the most vibrant story, which I love, is they sent hundreds of thousands of tons of meat conserves. You know, this meat for military. You eat it; it's cooked already. You open, you eat it, and it's cleaned inside. So if you don't open it, it can stay without refrigeration. It can stay okay to eat for like 10 years, and that was the case because the Soviet Union was mostly starving. Not in Moscow, not in St. Petersburg, but in everywhere else. There was a shortage of food. So about 25 years later, after the Second World War, people like my grandfather and other people of that generation went to were forced to take part of the Russian conscription, which was 3 years at the time. They were fed the very same meat cans, meat conserves that were given by the US and the UK in the 1941 and 42 by the Lend-Lease. Russians wouldn't use them if they would have their own food. They used them because they didn't have an alternative. That shows you, even 20 years later, that the Russians still used the United States aid in their system. And this is not talked about in history at all. The Soviet Union would have collapsed fully if it wasn't for the Lend-Lease. That is the truth. Number 5. They offered Hitler an armistice in 1943. At the same time as the Russians were pressing the Western allies to open a second front, the Russians were actively seeking peace with Hitler. The final proposal that they sent to Hitler called for return of the German-Russian borders to 1914. This offer was sent in 1943 and was nothing more than an attempt to stab the allies in the back. Western allies sought no such deal. Number 6. They committed genocide and ethnic cleansing. Yes, this happened in Estonia and all of the countries occupied by the Russians. I'm not going to even say by the Soviets, because it was the Russians. It was the Soviet Russian Republic who occupied all of the neighboring countries. Between February and March 1944, the Russians expelled the populations of Chechnya and Ingushetia from their countries, both of these areas being Muslim. Chechens, I'm telling you, even before the Soviet Union, they fought against the Tsars, but the Soviets deported hundreds of thousands of Chechens. They shot the wives and children. 650,000 victims were deported. So this puts into new light this Ramzan Kadyrov right now, the dictator of Chechnya and the traitor to the Chechen people, because he turned his back, because his forefathers in the First and Second Chechen War actually fought against the Russians. His bloodline was in the leading positions in that Chechen Republic, and then he joined Putin. So he's a true traitor. 200,000 victims died. 1/3 of the Chechen Ingush population died. This is by Stalin's orders. 7. They took revenge against the civilian population. I cannot talk about this because of YouTube overlordship, but you know what I mean here. Number 8. The West liberated countries. The Russians conquered them. That is true. The Russian history of World War II is a lie. The Russians suffer from an extremely selective memory when it comes to World War II. And I do agree. This is a perfect summary, very short summary of what is being black to white and white to black in Russia. And also in some Western countries, these pro-Russian people say, oh, it was the Soviet Union who lost the most, therefore they beat it, the Nazis. The Soviets would have collapsed. They were on the verge of collapse, but the US just carried them through the war. At the very end of the war, they got their might back. My friends, since I'm going to Ukraine tomorrow, so you will not be getting a video for 1 week, but if you want updates, go to my Patreon, because I'll be posting videos and photos to my Patreon, like a blog post explaining what I do there. I also do the same in my Instagram, link is also in the description below. And to be fair to everybody, since I'm not going to be uploading for a week, be sure to be back after that week, because I'll be back. I'll be reading you all of the Patreon names that I haven't read so far. There's many of them, so if you're already accustomed to the ear bleeding on my channel, stay. If you don't want your ears to hurt and bleed, you gotta go now, because I'm gonna start. Mikael Kerje, Alec Forbes, Faustina Roberts, Mikael A. McGinty, J.R., Doug Cummings, Brian Wilson, E. Lund, Debra Norberg, Kolja Godzilla, Gert, Gregory Ernest, Siim Pihlak. Oh, that is a full Estonian name. Fully, like, you gotta be Estonian. Martins Sudars. Now that is a fully Latvian name. Martin Sudar is an Estonian name. Martins Sudars, S on the end of both, is a Latvian name. So, 2 Baltics represented. Let's see if we get Lithuania. T. Mario Jooken. Ian.ross@emediahause.com. Caroline Horn. Kirstine Engelhard Pedersen, Lampo. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. I'll do that again. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You're welcome for butchering my tongue. I got a rest for a week from this. My friends, thank you for being with me. Now I'll be in Ukraine delivering the drones that you bought. $182,000 worth of drones. I'll be showing you every step of the way in my Patreon and Instagram. You gotta sign up, of course. And you made this trip possible. Keep an eye on my channel after I return, because I'll make a whole video there. You'll see what you bought, you see who I give it to, and you'll see what's happening in the future. Until my next video, which happens after 1 week, so be back. Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.